I apologize for the lack of light a little bit, folks. It's 5:43 in the morning, Monday, if you will, the day after Father's Day. And I'll talk about that probably in my work vlog. But this, as I've said in my channel update for the summer, is just an example of how I'm going to try to do some videos when I can, if you know what I mean. But getting to the topic at hand here, you know, recently MixedFan8643, I believe, recently announced the retirement of his online character, the Media Man. Yeah. Basically, in my opinion, the Media Man was more of a written version of Linkara, and sometimes a nostalgia critic. And he did a decent job. His main priority at times, or main focus at times when it came to reviews, was the Sonic comics. Well, majority of the time it was the Sonic comics by Archie Comics. And then, otherwise, it'd be other media stuff as well, like movies and novels and things like that, other comics. But, like I said, recently he retired the character. He hung up the character's coat and hat for the time being, and just wants to be himself now. Don't know why. I mean, I enjoyed the Media Man. I'm sure you guys did on DeviantArt, but hey, it's his decision. You know, it's kind of like when Doug Walker took a break and retired and hung up the coat and hat and tie from the Nostalgia Critic for a while. He wanted a breather, and I'm thinking maybe that's what he wants, in a sense, just a breather from doing the Media Man and probably doing these same things but as himself, and kind of give a real person, a real perspective on what he's done as Media Man and what he hasn't done yet at all. Now, one of the things he did, of course, brought up recently as himself, as MixedFan8643, I believe. I think that's just him. Yeah, 8643. One of the things he did recently, actually about almost 24 hours ago, because right now it's about 5:46 in the morning, is he did a top 10 least favorite Archie Sonics stories. Now, I'm not going to read off all the details of, well, not details, but details. I'm not going to read off all the opinions at all. I'm just going to list these top 10 least favorite Archie Sonic stories that, you know, he just doesn't really care for. He's got a favorite list coming, if not has come already, but he's got a favorite list coming, I think, as well. Like I said, if he hasn't done it already, a top 10 favorite list. Now, he does admit right off the bat that he's more of a fan of the Ian Flynn style of writing when it comes to Archie's Sonic the Hedgehog comic. And I know there's a lot of people that'll hear this and they'll be like, you know, is this guy out of his mind? Why would you be a fan of Ian Flynn? Well, you gotta realize, some people will read the older issues and they will enjoy them. You see, longtime fans like myself that have been fans of the comics, that have read the comics almost since the very beginning, I've got issues dating back all the way, actual issues dating back all the way up to about issue 6. If you want to know, about issue 6 with that Christmas Carol adaptation. So yeah, you know, only not saying all, but there are certain long-time readers, if not subscribers of the comic, that can appreciate, respect, and understand the ups and downs that the comic has gone through, and can appreciate, respect, and understand, if not, in a sense, critique the good and the bad when it comes to stories. Now, he does point out some stories from Ian Flynn's run here that were bad, and some from the previous runs that were bad. So, anyway, without further ado, again though, like I said, I'll provide a link down below. You guys can read this on your, like I said, on your own leisure. But he does admit, like I said, I'll give him credit here, and I do respect him for this. He admits that he's a fan more of Ian Flynn's writing than he is of the previous writers. So, what is exactly his top 10? What is exactly his 10 least favorite stories out of the Archie Sonic comic book? What are his top 10 least favorites? Well, number 10, and you gotta realize, when you do a countdown, sometimes a top 10 is usually kind of like, if you did a top 11, like Nostalgia Critic does sometimes a top 11. Top 11 is basically like, let's say if it's a top 11 best or top 11 favorites, this story, which is at number 10 of least favorites, would be number 11 on his top 11 favorites. But he's not doing a top 11 like Nostalgia Critic, he's just doing a top 10. So as MixedFan8643, his number 10, he starts off the countdown with his number 10 being Pirate Plunder Panic from Sonic Universe issues 55 to 58. Again, I'll provide the link down below so you can read how he feels about these. So that's his number 10. Alright? And boy, like I said, I'll just provide a link. You can read it on your own because he gives a lot of detail and opinion as to why it's his number 10 least favorite. His number 9 least favorite, Shadows Fall from Sonic Universe issues 59 to 62. His number 8 least favorite, the Tales miniseries. Now, in case some of you don't know, back in the mid to late 90s, Archie Comics decided to spin off several of the characters into their own comic books. Of course, this was on top of the fact that they were spinning off several Knuckles comics, or Knuckles miniseries comics, or comic book miniseries, that were going to lead into his own monthly comic book that lasted up to about, I think, the mid-30s or something. So yeah, basically that's what they did at the time in the mid-90s, and they did it with not just Knuckles and several miniseries comics that were dedicated to him. They did it to several spin-offs. They did it with the Death Egg Saga, the original Death Egg Saga. They did it, I believe, yeah, they did it with the Death Egg Saga. And they did it with, oh no, it was called, I gotta look at it again, it was the Death Egg Quest or something like that. They did it with that, and they did it with several others as well. I think they may have done one with Mecha Madness, I'm not really sure, I don't think they did. But they did one with the Death Egg Quest, and they did several others. They did one with Princess Sally, as everybody knows, and of course the one he's talking about they did with Tails. Now I will say this, the Tails miniseries spun off, just like with Sally's, from several several backstories in the earlier issues. Now basically this was at a time when Mike Gallagher was one of the writers for the comic books. And Mike Gallagher came up with the idea that maybe Tails is getting, and I guess in a sense to be realistic, if you will, from a realistic standpoint, and of course portraying Tails as the genius that he is, and wanting to be treated with respect and independency, given his own independency as well to do certain things. Mike Gallagher came up with several backstories. Two of them were Growing Pains, where we met Fiona Fox for the first time. It was actually an animatronic version of Fiona. And then of course we got the Tails, out of that, the Tails miniseries. Sally's story, it went for several issues, even included a 48-page Sonic in Your Face comic book special, and thus then you had the 3-issue miniseries. But anyway, yeah, his number 8 least favorite is the Tails miniseries. And again, I'll let you read why that is when I provide the link down below. His number 7 least favorite, and this is one I kind of disagree with him with, Mobius 25 years later. Now he doesn't talk about 30, he just talks about 25. So, and MixedFan, okay, it's your opinion, but let me say this. You need to really, and I mean really, reread these stories again, okay? These are not as bad as they seem. You need to reread them and kind of get, and kind of look at it from this perspective. Just because they beat Eggman in this future doesn't mean peace and tranquility that we've been seeing in the in those stories. And as we would see later on with the continuation, you know, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean they're really at peace. You know, you get what I'm saying? And yeah, I agree there are certain things that they did that they shouldn't have done, but hey, Ken Penders, he wanted to explore new territory at that time. And again, he provides a lot of opinion on this one. And that's his number 6, I believe. Oh, no. Wait a minute. Huh? No, it's number 7. It's number 7. His number 8 was the Tails miniseries. His number 8 was the Tails miniseries. His number 9 was Shadows Fall. His number 10 was Pirate Plunder Panic. Let me recap here. Number 10 for MixedFan was Pirate Plunder Panic. Number 9, Shadows Fall. Number 8, Tails miniseries. Number 7 was Mobius 25 years later. And again, like I said, MixedFan, I think you need to just reread it again, give it a chance, and kind of look at it from a different perspective and everything. Kind of think maybe outside the box with it. And then his number 6 least favorite, and I do agree, this one was a little bit of a, like, really, you couldn't really connect 2 and 2 together. Line of Succession. Now, we can all pretty much, and I agree, blame Carl Bollers for breaking up Sonic and Sal. We get that. And, you know, Ken Penders, you know, whether you like the guy or not, did his best to try to get the two back together. And I think he's wanted to start with Line of Succession. And you may agree with how Ken wrote this and how he wrote Sally at times along with Carl Bollers. But I will say this. You know, what they were trying to do was do things from a realistic standpoint with the characters. Like with Sally, basically she had so much on her mind. Here now she has a father dying or on the verge of death, and she doesn't want to, and you know, she's doing with so much on her mind, she's probably doing what she feels is the best thing to do. And yeah, it goes against what she originally was about. I mean, in some of the original stories, she's like, hey, you can't make me marry somebody I don't want to marry. And that I don't love. But, you know, yet it does happen, and this does go against it. But again, I do agree. It's like, nobody could piece 2 and 2 together, especially with 150. And he does get into that later on too. But yeah, I do agree. Line of Succession, it's like, really, it took you guys this long. It took you what? Ironically, 2 years to get this taken care of. And just say, oh, by the way, 24, 25 issues later, 2 years later, he's gonna reveal to the world that this ain't Antoine, this is Antoine's evil counterpart from the anti-Mobius. So, yeah, I do agree with that one. I do agree on that one. His number 5 one is Twice Told Tales from the Sonic issue 114. Sonic the Hedgehog issue 114. It's his number 5 one. And again, he gives some plenty of detail on that. His number 4, Birthright, from issue 205 to 206. Birthright was a back story in the issues. One of Ian Flynn's, by the way. It involved Linda. His number 3 are from issues 150 to 151. And they are Hero to Zero and Chaos Emeralds. Okay, it's called Hero to Zero and Chaos Emeralds Are Forever, from issues 150 to 151. I told you he'd be talking about that. That's his number 3. His number 2, Tossed in Space. And, of course, one of the reasons it's called, Bolas is writing it. So, and now he does give some honorable mentions to some of the least worst. His honorable mentions are Consequence from 197, Olympic Trials, Worlds Collide. Believe it or not, he does honorably mention that as one of an honorable mention for least favorites. Any Mike Gallagher stories. And Sonic Rush from issues 160 and 161. The Chosen One from 149 to 150. And now he finally ends the countdown with his number 1 least favorite story. And this is another one I disagree with him with, because he has to reread this and kind of look at it from outside the box. And that is Endgame. Endgame basically to him is his least favorite. And again, Mixed Fan, I respect your opinion. If you feel that way, that's fine, but you gotta reread it one more time. Just give it one more chance, look at it from outside the box, and you have to understand that this was at a time when they didn't know if the comic was going to continue or not. Yeah, they didn't know if the comic was going to continue, Mixed Fan. That's why they did Endgame. And when the Endgame comic did start to succeed, did start to pick up, that's when they decided to change pace, change the stories. Now originally, just to give you a bit of trivia, Mixed Fan, Sally was supposed to die in this. She was. And Ken Pender's plans afterwards was to have a robot duplicate of Sally, impersonating her, making it look like she had survived her fall, but in the end be revealed as nothing more than one last menacing creation to torture Sonic with the reminder that Sally had died on that mission during Endgame. So yeah, Endgame was supposed to mark the final nail in the not the final nail, but was supposed to. Endgame was basically supposed to mark the end of Sally. And that Ken Pender's plans afterwards were to do exactly what I said. But because the fans and of course Sega wanted to keep her alive, and here's the ironic part, Mixed Fan. Sega kept her alive, in my opinion, because at the time they had a Sega World in several markets in several countries around the world, in several markets, in cities. In Sydney, Australia had one, and inside the theme park they had a live stage show, and in that stage show, which was called Sonic in Sydney Live, the main characters were Sonic, Tails, Eggman, Robotnik, and Sally. That's right, it was Sonic, Tails, and Sally against